Prince Harry has Andrew complex, fears he'll be ignored. This story is popping up in a few places, and I won't even say where because that's not important, but it's a narrative that they're trying to create, that Prince Harry is living in some type of fear of turning into a Prince Andrew. This story continues. Harry has long harbored an Andrew complex, fearing he will be ignored as interest focuses on the next generation of royals, according to a report. The 36-year-old exiled prince exiled? The 36-year-old exiled prince. So he's living in exile? Who writes? Well, I'm not even going to say who writes it, but who writes crap like this? The 36-year-old exiled prince admitted in an interview going back at least 5 years ago, of course it's 5 years ago, that he was concerned about becoming boring as people become more interested in his brother's kids and blah, 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 blah. Harry has always been in such a rush to make an impact. There was no need to rush to make an impact. He's the embodiment of impact. What are you saying? This is why this is so stupid. He's in a rush to make an impact. He doesn't have to rush. He's already there. He was the most popular royal until they created this hate campaign. It continues that he's worried that after that he will turn into his uncle. The friend said, referring to Andrew, who was banished from the royal duties amid a scandal of his close ties to the late pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. And so they're saying that he was in such a rush to give a high-profile interview, and now he's in a rush to write his memoirs because he's afraid he's going to turn into Andrew. No, he's not turning into somebody like that. That's just not possible. So allegedly, he told a reporter that he wants to use his privileged position for good stuff as long as he can until he becomes boring. I could almost believe that conversation happened except for one thing. I just couldn't see Harry having the type of energy that he possesses. I couldn't imagine him being boring. Prince Andrew is boring. There's nothing boring about Harry. So while I would say, yes, maybe it's possible this conversation could have been had, perhaps it was taken out of context to make him sound more desperate and needy. But yeah, sure. I mean, you could do the math. Obviously, at some point, the focus will shift to the Cambridge kids, in particular, Prince George. But I think Harry has too much creativity. He's a thinking person. We all know what Andrew was thinking about, but that doesn't seem to be his story. There's such a vast difference in the way Harry lived his life compared to Andrew. Even with all of these antics that they like to make light of from his youth, I think they're two completely different persons, or people rather, and I think the outcome would have been vastly different. The only thing that could have possibly tripped Harry up is if he stayed in that family. That would have stifled him and he would have been stuck and complacent until he was made completely redundant. But that was never going to happen. He was always going to be a very popular senior member of the family. Yeah, everybody at some point is going to start looking at the Cambridge teenagers as the next generation and all of the youth and optimism that comes along with that. But I can understand that is a possibility, but I'm not going to concede that Harry definitely had the conversation in the tone in which it was written, but I will say that it is quite logical. But let me interject my own feelings about this. Harry would have been in a position where his sovereign would eventually be his brother, whether it's in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Could you imagine that crazy looking person, his brother? And I'm just going to say crazy looking because I'm trying to avoid any language that would be, I guess, too severe, because I don't want to get in trouble. But could you imagine that nut, his brother, handling the purse strings for your future, delegating your responsibilities within the family? Because eventually it would boil down to that, and not even necessarily after he becomes king, but after William becomes the Prince of Wales. When he becomes the Prince of Wales, his father, the pushover, would be in such a fragile state and probably terrified of his son right now. I can only imagine it would get worse in the future. His father is going to be so passive and fragile that William will make everybody's life a living hell. He's already doing it over at KP. I'm almost going to guarantee you, I'm not going to even wait until the reports come out, that there are already people at KP that aren't even working for William that has seen him incandescent with rage. It's just going to be any day now. He's going to completely flip out. He's not stable. He's like TNT. He could just blow any minute. I don't know Prince William, but I'm just going to say his body language says to me that he's not satisfied unless everybody is uncomfortable. Have you ever heard him try to tell a joke? I mean, they just fall flat. It's like he's spitting pancakes out of his mouth. Flat. They just, I mean, it's just, he has no personality. He's this brooding, menacing lunatic. Somebody with that type of temperament, and let's think about it. As much as we make fun of Charles, with the way he's lived his life since he married his first wife, we make fun of him. But Charles is pretty passive, and he doesn't like a lot of confrontation. William, on the other hand, I'd see a complete opposite. He's the polar opposite of his father. I think he would enjoy playing the big shot. He's doing enough of that now. So I'm saying that it's a very good thing that Harry got out of there. I honestly think that is, and then this pandemic has been a complete reset. Because if Harry would have been half in and half out as a working senior royal, then he would have been called upon, based on the weight of his popularity, to come back over there and get involved with stuff only for his brother and that KP crew, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Wait, well, there is one person of color, yeah, so I mean, there's one brown face in that whole group. So if you look sharp, you can find them all the way in the back near the door, because they just called him in to take that picture, and then he's got to go back outside and finish waxing the cars or whatever he was doing. I think he's a driver. That's why I'm saying that. I do really believe he's a driver. But but that KP crew, if you just look at them, could you imagine William really, once he's going to inherit the Duchy of Cornwall, that's going to give him a lot of power and a lot of money over the people in Cornwall. And then, of course, being the Prince of Wales, he'll be in Charles' position, and he's going to have a lot of authority over things. And one of the things I'm pretty sure that he's going to be ruling over is his father. I can just see Prince Charles as being this big pushover. I just don't see him as being able to stand up against his son's lack of tolerance. But you know what? I'm going to do something that people rarely do. Even though I just said all of that about Charles, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that he is not blinded to what I think is going to be a big problem in the future. I hope that he's able to actually stand his ground and actually reign, and not just because, it's like we don't really know how much of the policy is coming from the Queen and how much is actually Charles's work. Charles has been taking a lot of duty from the Queen, so we just don't know. We don't know. And you know what? We don't care either, because Harry's out of there. And even though they try over and over again to try to pull him back in, it doesn't make a difference at this point. He's a property owner in California. He has several jobs. And most important, he has a family. Years ago when I would look at William, I would think, oh, he's really going to, it's like I thought he had this something that he was going to do to avenge the way his mother was treated. But the truth is, he's drinking the Kool-Aid. He has been totally conscripted into the fold, and he's one of them. He's not a rebel at all. He's a company man through and through. So this is one of those quotes from the anonymous royal aide who said, one former aide predicted that after the memoir, Harry and his wife Meghan will sail into the sunset, convinced that they did the right thing by speaking their truth. Now I hope everyone shuts the F up. And the anonymous ex-aide told this rag, one thing that they got right is that they have sailed into the sunset. The sunset in California is absolutely lovely. And they did the right thing by speaking their truth. So even though they were trying to really nudge them in the ribs with their elbows with this story, they actually said something very poignant and relevant at the end. The fact that they are going to sail into the sunset. They have sailed into the sunset, and they're going to live happily ever after, because they don't have to play by the rules of that firm, that establishment, that game of bones or whatever they got going on there. They don't have to live with that. Okay, time for a little messy, but not too messy, because I actually am not interested in people who don't drag the Sussexes, who don't attack the Sussexes. So if you don't mess with the Sussexes, I'm not going to mess with you. So I did have a little fun with Jack Brooksbank yesterday, but I didn't actually drag him. I just kind of had a little fun with the idea of it. I am going to go out on the limb and say this. Even though it looks really, really bad, and it does look really, really bad, it may all be very innocent. I hope it is. I really do hope it is. I mean, I don't want anybody to go through that, but, honestly, when I look at him, I never thought he was the sharpest tool in the shed. I always thought that he was just kind of like too giddy and happy-go-lucky to ever be any kind of a threat to, what is her name, Eugenie's happiness? So let's just operate on the assumption that it was all very innocent. It doesn't look like he was trying to hide anything. There was Jack, I guess the crew member of the boat, that they rented, and 3 very attractive women, one of which decided to do some topless sunbathing. Well, that's Europe for you. In certain parts of Europe, they're not very prudish about that kind of thing. So let's just assume that there's nothing to it and that he'll be back safely ensconced in the Frogmore Shack Cottage pile of sticks. But here's one little caveat. If I'm wrong, then the next time you hear somebody reporting that some personal possessions were removed from Frogmore, perhaps those personal possessions will be that of Jack Brooksbank. I doubt it. Like I said, I do believe that this was all very innocent. I mean, he has a lovely wife waiting for him back in the United Kingdom. Something tells me that he cut his ship. He cut his trip short so that he could return safely to Frogmore Cottage, and everything is okay. So don't worry about it. There was totally nothing to it. There was nothing to look at. There's no story there. Everybody just move along, go about your business. I didn't see anything that looked like it was inappropriate. It was just a business trip. And if you're listening to me, Jack Brooksbank, I'm trying to help you establish your story before you get back to Frogmore. So this way you won't have to move your possessions out. Because I bet you they still got some boxes and packing peanuts and bubble wrap. I bet you still some tape around there somewhere. So just to make sure that you're not the next person packing up personal belongings at the Frogmore Cottage, just let her know that nothing happened. I mean, I looked at the photos and I didn't see anything that looked out of place. And just because he got that big gaping grin on his face, that means nothing. It was just all relaxing in between whatever business that was going on. So anyway, that's my take on it. Let's not think the worst. Let's not assume the worst. There's no story there. It's none of our business, because as far as I know, he has never said or done anything to disparage the Sussexes. But if somebody mentions in the comment that he has, then I'll come back and talk about him again in a different way. But as long as there's no assumption that he's ever said anything negative about the Sussexes, I have nothing to say. It's just as simple. I'll leave it alone. So I'm standing up for him, and I'm saying that nothing happened between Jack Brooksbank and those 3 topless women on that boat in the middle of the Mediterranean or wherever they were. Nothing happened, okay? All right, well, have a nice day, everybody. Please don't forget to like, share. What else subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And if you want to donate to my PayPal or my Cash App, or even consider becoming a member of the Patreon, then that would also be very nice. So nothing happened. So if you got your mouth all smirked up and everything, cut it out. Don't use that Marla Gibbs face on me. I'm telling you, nothing happened. He just simply was having some downtime with his co-workers that happened to be topless on that boat. It's Europe. Everybody's topless. I'm topless now. And I'm sure some of you all are topless listening to my voice, doing whatever you're doing. So Nothing happened. So just stop thinking what you're thinking. Okay? We're better than that. Well, you all are. I'm not. Well, we're better than that. So, again, nothing happened. You hear, Jack? Nothing happened. So when you get back to that spot, that shack, you make sure you tell her, babe, nothing happened. And to be fair, he was topless too. So that's it. Go on about your business now, y'all. Ain't nothing to see here. And put your tops on, would you? I'm feeling vulnerable. Okay, thanks you guys.